I visited Fira Soft's booth in the Brazil Games area to preview Kriophobia. As the name suggests, Kriophobia is set in an unknown underground military complex in Russia during the winter. You play as Anna, a geophysicist who brings her science team with her to investigate a string of anomalies in that region by exploring the underground complex. As these things usually go, Anna and her group encounter devastating events that trap them underground, facing the horrors that await them deeper in the bunkers. The art style of Kriophobia was what interested me in the first place, but the story was a quick second in piquing my interest. Gameplay handled a lot like the old Resident Evil games with a fixed camera and tank controls. The team at Fira Soft is fairly small, and they mostly create educational games in Brazil, which is a hard turn from what Kriophobia seems to be. Along with getting hands-on time with the demo, I was also able to chat with the lead game designer and programmer, Luigi Refati of Fira Soft.
Tell me about yourself and your game. First of all, how do I pronounce it?
Luigi. Oh, the game is Kriophobia.
Okay, yes. So tell me about your video game studio.
Okay, so we're Fira Soft, a studio from Brasilia, Brazil. And right now we have like 13 people working with us.
Wow, okay.
But in Kriophobia right now we have about 4 people working because we work in a lot of projects. Like our main thing is like outsourcing and doing games for educational games and marketing games for other companies.
Wow.
But we have this game which is like our own IP, and we have been working on it for a very long time now.
Okay.
We started developing Kriophobia in 2013. Like 12 years ago, but we had to stop and restart developing the game like a lot of times because of funding and money and stuff like that and other projects. So I would say the game has had like 4 years of development with kind of 6 to 8 people. On average.
Okay, so you make a lot of educational games. This is obviously very different.
Very non-educational,
Yeah. So what inspired this game? Because it's kind of scary, right? Like it's a bit of a horror game.
We're kind of crazy on that department because we do a lot of different games. Like the game we're doing after this game will be like a very party game, like battle arena game, and we like to do very different games. But back in the day, when we thought let's do a horror game, it was like a game jam. We made an internal game jam and we made a 2D horror game with a lot of ideas that were like used in Kriophobia.
Okay.
We like to call it like the Kriophobia version 0.
Yeah.
Because it was like a 2D game with a lot of really nice ideas. And at some point someone suggested that can we replicate the same pre-rendered tech that Resident Evil used, and then we made a proof of concept of that, and it was awesome.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And we said, this is something we want to do.
Okay, yeah, I think I do see some of that when I think she was walking through some of the darker areas, and I could see a little bit of fog. It was very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it happened. So the idea was born from a game jam. Do you do those very often?
We used to do a lot of those like back in the day, but nowadays we don't have like a lot of time. Like in Brasilia has a lot of game jams, but sometimes we have like 1 or 2 people from the studio going to those, but usually we don't do those anymore.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So you are the lead developer, right?
I'm the lead game designer.
Lead game designer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what is something that you think is like extremely unique about Kriophobia that you're very excited for players to get their hands on?
I have to say the visual style. Like our visual style is really unique because we really take the pre-render idea and we make it better. So, like pre-renders, they usually don't have like shadows and lighting and all that stuff, and we don't just have those things, but we like improve them. Like we have custom shadows and custom lighting, and it looks really nice in the end result. As I was just telling someone here, like when we started developing Kriophobia, like in pre-production, I would repeat myself saying, I want every shot from the game to be able to be a wallpaper. So if you take a print at any time, it should be a nice wallpaper. It should be nice to look at. And I think we kind of got there. Like I think our game is really nice. Looks really nice.
Yeah, and you're not biased or anything at all.
Nah, bias me? Nah.
Yeah, I think the very first thing was I got an email asking if I wanted to get a look at this, and the very first thing I noticed was the art style, right? So a lot of games, I think, especially like indie games, they very much rely on getting very stylized games, right?
Yeah.
So how closely did you work with your artists? Because I'm assuming, how many artists do you have for this?
Yeah, that will be surprising.
Okay.
Most of the game was done with one artist, one 2D artist. Like
Cool.
we have one 3D artist and one 2D artist.
Okay, so 2 total, like overall.
2 total artists.
Wow, okay.
And like 4 programmers. Because this thing is like way harder to code than it is to paint. Although it doesn't look like that, it's way harder to code than it's to paint. But every single camera you see there is like a 2D painting that is like handmade.
Oh, wow.
Like
Okay.
it's digital, but it's handmade. And because the game itself has almost no textures at all. Everything is painted in the camera, in a single texture.
That's really smart.
And that's a lot of work. I think the game has like 100 something of those cameras. And it's a lot of 2D work, but like spread in the years.
Yeah, because you said since 2013?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So has it gone through many like big changes, or have you kind of stayed the course and it's just taken that long since your team is very small?
Yeah, we started the game in 2013.
Yeah.
And we had like the vision of the game changed in 14 to 15 because the game was originally a mobile game. We were planning on making like a survival horror point and click game. That was our original concept. And people like that came to we showcased the game in some events in Brazil, and people would just like come to our booth and say, you should do this like for controller, like for Steam and for consoles. I want to play like an original, a classic Silent Hill style game. And then we had like a very hard time to like decide if we wanted to switch direction, but in the end we switched it, and then we rebooted the project in 2014, but we had no funding at that time, so we worked like for a year and a half on the game with a smaller team, and then we ran out of money and we stopped the project. And in 2019, we finally got like funding, like enough funding to make the game work.
Yeah.
And then we had to decide again, like, are we going to reuse what we did in 15 or not? And then most of the things we didn't reuse. We mostly rebooted the game all over again, like from the ground. Like tech, we reused a lot of tech, but like gameplay and cameras and level design and everything was like scratched up, and we made it all over again. We actually have more things from the original version than from the 2014 version.
Wow, okay. So it seems like, I mean, it wasn't just all continuous development then? Like,
no, it was not. It was a very turbulent development.
Yeah, which, I mean, as an independent studio, I assume it's very difficult to, keep projects. Yeah. What engine does this run on?
Unity.
Unity, okay.
Yeah, we started the game in Unity 4, if I'm not mistaken, and now we are at 21 something, like 21 LTS.
Wow, yeah, okay. So what inspired this specific setting? I mean, like, obviously you're a fan of Silent Hill and Resident Evil.
Yeah, actually that's a very good question because we are Brazilians, and our game is set in Russia.
That's what I was wondering. Because I was like, oh, Brazil games, but this does not look Brazilian.
Yeah, it's a game like about the cold, which we don't have in Russia. Yeah. Like we in a bunker that we also don't have that in Brazil.
So it's just like you wanting to be in the place?
I think we're just crazy, in the end. I think we're just crazy. But like, I don't know why. I can't even say why. I really don't remember. But the idea was always that Anna was a war orphan from Russia, and we really liked the. I think everything started because we wanted the game to be in a closed space, so like a military facility, underground military facility, and then we started to research where those places were and where in the world would we find those, and then Russia just like started coming up on the list.
Yeah.
Like they have a lot of really big abandoned bunkers, and the game has like a little bit of pseudoscience and pseudo-history. So like Russia was famous for doing like military research and experiments and stuff like that, and we said, oh, we could like use that a little bit as a background in the game, and I think it progressed from there. But in the end we had to study a lot. I think we have like 100 hours of footage of people inside underground bunkers somewhere in our references.
Wow. Okay, that's actually really cool. That's kind of like if you Stalker 2, how they actually went to the exclusion zone. That's very much like hands-on research.
Yeah, we don't have money for that, so we have to watch people doing that.
No, but that's great because you are using resources that are available for this project, which is great. So yeah, it was very funny though. It was like snow and cold. Brazil? Okay, that's very different, but that's very cool. Yeah, you're just offering this fantasy, right, for players.
Yeah.
I also saw the difficulty levels, how they're called different like varying temperatures.
Yeah,
right?
it's like cold, hypothermia, and absolute zero.
Yeah, that's awful. That sounds awful. Do you think that fans of like casual horror fans will find this approachable too? Like it's not too scary?
Yeah, the game is like more survival and less horror.
Okay.
But the mechanics are kind of harder, I think, because the best way to play the game is with tank controls, which is very like hardcore, old school survival horror players. But we also have camera relative controls with like helpers, we call them helpers, that help you like keep your direction when cameras change. So we want the game to be approachable for like a broader audience, yeah.
Okay, good. That's good for me. Also, knowing it's more survival based, I love survival stuff, so that's perfect.
Nice.
Yes.
And the game is like really story focused. So like you start the game, the idea is you get caught by the visuals, but as you play, you start getting like involved in the story. And the story, I think it's the best the game has to offer is the story. Like I didn't answer this in your first question.
Yeah.
Because it's harder to see. Like I can't convince you that a story is good. You have to play our game.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. When I saw the trailer on Steam, it kind of the movement and everything kind of reminded me of like Strange, the Telltale games. Was that a bit of inspiration, like for the narrative and everything?
For the second version of the game, the game was more inspired in those kinds of games, like more in like narrative games, like pure narrative games. But as we rebooted the game and we put Herman as our director, he switched away from that. Like he said, like we don't want to make a narrative game, we want to make a survival horror game. And I'm the narrative game guy. Like I really love those games. And he started like holding me on that sense, which was good for the game. Like I think that was the right direction to go.
Okay, yeah. Are there going to be decisions you can make in the game that change the ending?
Yeah, we have 4 endings.
Wow.
Maybe with a secret 5th ending.
Oh.
But we have like 4 endings, and some things you do may make those endings available or not when you get to the end of the game.
Okay, that's awesome.
And our endings are really nice.
Yeah.
I have to say. Or really bad.
Oh yeah.
Or really bad.
Oh true, yeah. Again, not biased at all.
Not biased at all.
Where can people find your game, and when can they expect it to come out?
So we want to launch it by October on Steam. It's already available for wishlisting, and this year, like 2025, we're going to showcase the game in a lot of places, different places in Brazil and out of Brazil. Maybe Tokyo Game Show, maybe Gamescom Europe. So yeah.
Cool, amazing. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me.
Thank you.